Got no bunny.
I know, I just realized.
Oh, hello, Bunny Beans. This is our test. Oh, shit, I have to look at the camera.
Bonjour.
Oh, bonjour. Ingenue. Hello, this is our test. I hope it's working. That's enough. Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is the Quack crew that consists of the Mighty Banes. Hi, Mighty Banes.
Hello.
The Mighty Banes. The Mighty Pitface.
We're quacky and we're wacky.
Oh God, not that kind of character. And the Mighty Tanserine. Hello.
Hello.
So, Tans, what is good in life? I just felt like asking.
Nothing's good.
Nothing.
Oh.
Damn it. All right, I'll pass it on. Banes, what
To
is
crush
good
your
in life?
enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women.
Oh, awesome. That's what was going to come to you last, because I knew you'd get it.
I wouldn't have. Well done.
Yes, that is what is good in life. Conan.
I didn't have time to get a proper Conan Schwarzenegger voice going, so it just kind of turned into like, I don't know what you'd call that, but it wasn't very good.
It was awesome. It was an honest portrayal. You weren't trying too hard. It was good.
It wasn't my
really
best
good.
effort.
You were a plains warrior. That's cool. So in this QUACKCAST, we're going to be talking about symbolism and meaning and intention and all this art literature stuff in comics. And we'll use our own as examples and maybe bring up other people's so we can talk about symbolism that we have seen in other work and how it manifests and what we think work means. Because that's really fun to do if you've ever done art literature. No, not art literature. Something literature.
Literary criticism.
In general.
Yeah, that's it. That stuff. Good with words. So before we get into that, gonna have to bring up the featured comic, which I featured it. So here I am talking about the feature, which was about a Percival Pigeon. Okay, it's a Percival Pigeon's Perilous Plan. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my featured comic for the week was Percival Pigeon's Perilous Plan. Percival the Pigeon has a plan. It's a crazy plan, and it's probably not going to work. In fact, it certainly won't, but he's going to try it anyway. In the far future, humanity have all left the Earth, a horrible wasteland haunted by giant mutated swamp beasts and the brave inheritors of civilization. The rats, the pigeons, the gulls, and bugs. Percival wants to reverse the destruction and take the world back to the paradise it once was. This is a short little comic with a fun environmental message, all in black and white, completely in line art. The story is action adventure. It's just been completed, so you can read it all in one go. The artist is Average Artist Amber, also the creator. And Average Artist Amber also creates the comic Demolition Duo, which is still ongoing, so you can check that out too. If you want to see more of her work that's actually going on and not just read through the completed one. So there you are. She's actually still doing work. Percival Pigeon's Perilous Plan. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I featured it because it's only just been completed, and it's always good to feature a comic that's complete. And plus, if I hadn't featured it now, then I couldn't feature it because it wouldn't have been a recent comic. So yeah, you're very lucky. I just caught it just at the right time. So yeah, it's a very quick read, only about 30 pages or so. Not many, and you can rush through it and enjoy a little fun environmental comic and see how it goes. And then move on to, if you like Average Artist Amber's style, you can move on to Demolition demon demolition duo and see how that is. God, she loves, I'm assuming she's a she loves alliteration. So enjoy Percival Pigeon's Perilous Plan. Rated E. And that was the feature! Percival Pigeon, which is, I always have trouble remembering this comic name because of the alliteration in the title. Percival Pigeon's Clever Plan? Something like that. I hope you enjoy it. It's only 30 pages or so, but I would have talked about that already. Okay, so next up, we have the featured music that Gumwallace has given us. Good old Gumwallace, giving us good music all the time. Fantastic guy that he is. This week, he has given us the theme to Pep Squad. So, these girls are here to get you motivated. You can almost see the dance routine in your mind's eye. And believe me, it's pretty sexy. They've got some moves. The crowd roars as the Pep Squad perform, bumping, grinding, and sliding on stage. So, take it away, Gumwallace, with Pep Squad. And that was the theme to Pep Squad. And that is, of course, a comic by Dave Meyer, rated E for everybody. Okay, so, meaning, guys. Deeper meaning in your work. Do you have any? I'm pretty sure we all do.
We're very deep people. Of course we do.
So deep.
Meaning. Well, we did our little Patreon video, of course, and you really should donate at least $5, and then you can see us all in the flesh talking about it, our beautiful glistening bodies as we discuss these amazing topics. Shining.
That's everything glistening with you today. Why?
Oh,
That's
that music really affected him.
We're just human slugs.
He's been gyrating the whole time that he's been talking.
Yeah, you should see me. Just bouncing on my chair. So we talked about the symbolism in various things. Pitt, you didn't get a chance to talk about all the symbolism you have in Blitzov. And of course, Blitzov is just full of symbolism. You have a grey-faced, tall man. So he looks like he's dead, basically. He's wearing black all the time. Again, death, it seems to be a big theme. So he's talking about, and the topic is often on death. So you've got all these kind of dead themes. The world is dead, it's obviously a post-apocalyptic kind of world. There's a heavy focus on the theme of death. Blitzov is scared of death. There's a fear of it, or at least he's thinking about it quite often. So there's a heavy symbolism of mortality within this comic. It's obvious.
That's true. There's a very dark, kind of heavy, sort of Russian. Not just because his name's Blitzov. Maybe that's the main reason. I get that sense. But this sort of bleakness, not in a bad way, but what you said is well put.
Well, the comic opens with a funeral, basically. We open with Beauty being run down a chute for these rails and to be launched into the pit. Beauty is dead. Which is, oh my god, that is massively symbolic. Beauty is dead. And the world, of course, Blitzov is sort of wondering about this world, sort of looking for something, anything, and there's no plants or flowers, so beauty is literally dead in this world. There's nothing except like mines and, it's like blasted earth. So he's looking for beauty in this world. There's very little left. And what does he find but a living corpse? Which is another thing symbolic of what the world is.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it's super.
That's really cool.
Super heavily symbolic work. It's got this beautiful muted tones. There's no real brightness in the work. There's a lot of dark purples and blacks and blues and things like this, and even muted browns and all those kind of colors. So it all sort of plays into that theme, but it's not a depressing work at all. There's this subtle humor in it. Well, I don't want to get too far into a review of it, but yeah, so it's a heavily symbolic work. Pitt doesn't really see it, maybe because she's just so much about savant.
I wouldn't say that. No, I'd agree with everything that you said for the most part.
Oh.
I mean,
oh, good.
It's. I think there's a difference between. There is a lot of symbolism, but it's not commentary symbolism. If you look at anybody's work that has sort of a theme through it, like death, or superheroes or anything, you're going to find symbols. I think it's unavoidable because you are going to have ways of expressing that world and the themes therein. It's from just telling people about that world and the themes therein.
Okay. Yeah. It plays into your vocabulary as an artist or a creator. That things sort of follow the same theme. And help each other along. Yeah, so that is a highly symbolic work.
So what I'm saying is it might not be something that you do cerebrally. Like, this is a symbolism for this. Like, this theme of death that I've had in Blitzoff, that's kind of come as a process as I've created the comic. So there wasn't any foreplanning of like, this is symbolism in this way, but rather just to feed into the themes of that world and what I'm doing. I've come up with these as the afterthought.
Well, it's part of the vocabulary of the comic. And that just fits. So Blitzov is grey-faced, and he's wearing black.
And see, those, for instance, are things like choose those things because of the theme of death. I chose those things before I had created any of this world. And it's just, it fit in well with the theme that I came to adopt later on. So having these kind of images perhaps fed into the theme later on, into having this sort of symbolism.
Yeah. And we all sort of work together.
Yeah.
Excellently. Yeah. And there's
Thank you.
So many things. It adds to it. His brother Blastov, who also looks like a bloated corpse of a man.
I wouldn't tell him he said that.
Who's piggy little eyes. And yeah, the doctor who also, everybody looks like they're half alive.
That's kind of my art, though.
It's in this world, though. They're more so than, say, putrid
than
meat.
Septica. Yeah, Septica, I mean, people are still kind of unhealthy looking there, but it's a little bit more glitzy and glammy. Here, the world, like you said, has died for the most part. And things have kind of reset, and they become very austere, kind of minimalist. So they perhaps have a little bit more at their disposal than I'm cueing you in, but I'm kind of like my purpose in nitpicking the way that a lot of these people are dressing. It's really flat compared to the Septicans and kind of uninteresting. And I did purposely choose them to dress like that. Well, not only because it's easier for me to draw and keep track of, to be honest, but also because they are living in this very austere world where they don't have a lot at their disposal, and disposal. Jeez, I've got a master's. And yeah, so it's just one of those symbolic things that kind of cue people into how the world is.
Yeah. Yes.
And it can change over time because it will.
Yeah, you could brighten things up, for example, or...
And it's a telltale that Exis is wearing this Havana shirt.
Yeah.
It is very colorful, especially when compared to Blitzov as they are working. You said something about words. As they are walking, they are walking together. So you have this big towering black hole of the person, and next to him this very scampy looking, constantly in motion, in a sense. At least that's the impression that he gives me. Guy that wants to go everywhere and get the experience of everything, and he has this flamboyant shirt on him, and he drags around Blitzov everywhere. Of course, he also wants to go, but it very much feels like he's baiting him and pushing him to go and do things. Which is very interesting.
We start off with him being a literal corpse, and he becomes more alive as the story goes. And you're right, with the Havana shirt, the Hawaiian shirt, he becomes, way brighter. And he's sort of growing in life. Whereas it's a real contrast to Blitzov, who he looks way more alive than Blitzov does as the story goes on. And Blitzov is looking deader, like a man of clay. So
yeah, I'm glad you describe him that way, because when I originally made his design, and still now actually, you'll notice there's always little lines on his face because his skin is kind of the consistency of clay, sort of. So that doesn't have a lot to do with that, but I'm glad you pointed it out. So you can apply whatever meaning you wish to that.
It is a heavily symbolic work.
Yes.
I think the thematic thing that runs through Putrid Meat is disease. It is a diseased world. It really is. Everything, literal disease is happening often. I mean, I'm sure Bones has been through quite a few of them. It looks like
he is a few of them.
And it is a disease pustulant world, and that's what's happening. And the world is sort of moving on to its death throes or some kind of huge explosion of pus. That seems to be what's going to happen with the world of Septica. Well, I mean, that's what does. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, that's.
Well, you're not completely correct anyway, but I mean, you're right on a sense, but. And I've got this whole convoluted backstory in my head that nobody knows about. So, and I kind of like that people can apply whatever themes they see fit and stuff. Or disease is a theme, but Septica is at a different stage than you think it is. It's not dying; it's actually coming back to life. It used to be at the stage where Bunkuria was. Everything got kind of decimated, and so now it's kind of regrowing. But it's just, it's a crummy place, not everybody, grows up to, not every place bounces back to be this, amazing crystal city or something like that. It's a dingy shithole. And it used to be an even dingier shithole, So Septica is a little bit stranger, or Putrid Meat is a little bit stranger in that its themes aren't quite as concrete, maybe. It's got some symbolism in a sense, but not really more than what I was talking about before, at least to me anyway. It might be people will read things that I hadn't thought of before, but because like I said, I don't really do things super cerebrally in my comics. I'm kind of short-sighted in a sense with it, sort of. But beyond incorporating, some things from like thrash culture and stuff like that, thrash culture, there's not a whole lot of symbolism in there. And that's more of incorporating those symbols is more of a personal thing, and also for kind of dressing up the world once again and just kind of create, including these little kind of nods. But yeah, besides just kind of things that go into world creation, there's not a whole lot of, I guess there are some things you could kind of read into. Like with Exus, for instance, he gains the trust of the Septicans, and that's the weapon that he eventually uses against them, in a sense, is that he doesn't defeat them by carrying out this big military expedition. He defeats them by gaining their trust, and then by kind of sucking their, I don't know, I would say soul's life away. He just kind of slowly leeches off of the place, and then
there are intentional symbols, and then there are archetypal symbols. There are symbols inherent in characters.
Yeah.
So with Exus, he is the corporate bad guy. He's got the slick short hair, slick blonde looks. He's wearing a suit. He's got a giant, huge smile. That's him. The good guy, well, at least our protagonist, is Bones. This rough thrasher, like his cap on backwards, long red curly hair, rough looking guy, jeans, that kind of thing. So you have that rough Mr. Natural kind of fellow, someone who doesn't care, against someone who does care, who's like got a mechanistic plan to just remake the world in his image, or to bend the world to his will. So you have that structured corporate evil versus this chaotic kind of natural force. So you've got those kind of symbols, and they're very, very basic, but very much inherent in those characters. So
and I think, absolutely. And I think too, what comes out in using those kind of symbols in this case is, for Bones anyway, I like that you chose the words "he doesn't care," because that's, for a lot of things, that's true. But we find what he does care about when he does react to this opposite coming in and taking what he thought was once his. All of a sudden Bones is pretty much living for, like, I have to get back to Septica and I have to be king again. Although he was barely a semblance of anything you would call a king, to him, that was like, he never thought that he could achieve anything like that. So he wants to be there again. And that's what his whole existence starts to make an effort towards. So
that's an interesting work, in that those things are there, and you can really grab hold of those as a reader, and you really want to see what happens with that. The rough wild Bones against the corporate evil of Exus. Such a great name. So
it's very.
Oh, go on.
So it's just very serpentine in a sense.
It is. Yeah, you got that sibilance.
Yes,
So what about Brave or Resistance? Now, at the very beginning, Brave Resistance, you got a incredibly meaningful title that you guys picked because you wanted to sort of say, okay, this is exactly what it's about. Brave Resistance. We want to like have the two most meaningful words, like tell you everything the comic is about in the shortest possible way.
Well, so maybe Tanya, or a little bit more nuance to it. We are telling you what it's about, but Tanya can tell you what we were thinking with that.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to convey the two big elements in the story, which, of course, it was about this resistant cell that is up in the mountains, but it's also very, very much about Hunter, who is our main character, and in a very significant way, he's also our point of view character. Barring certain scenes that are taking place in the Gestapo, but he is the pivot of the story, and he is half Iroquois, if I pronounce it right.
Yeah, he's a Native American.
Yes.
First Nations.
Yes, and he has a very, very significant and I think a very alluring story of his own. By the time we see him in the plane and actually fighting and being the one that survives the dogfight, solely on his skill. And so the title wanted to have this element. So that's why it's Brave Resistance. Yes, it is Brave Resistance because everyone is being brave, but it's also about a brave who is Hunter.
Yeah, he is a brave, an Indian brave.
Yeah. That's the title.
It is an interesting setup because so you have this half Iroquois man being a fish out of water in the middle of World War II Greece, occupied Greece. Normally we'll always have a very middle of the road, not middle of the road, sort of Midwest kind of American, all American kind of character being lost in this realm, or British. And we'll see the world through their point of view. So you're already getting an unusual perspective on this world from someone who is not your normal protagonist. So you've got that unusualness, which means he's the perspective character, but it's not the normal perspective that you're going to get, which is interesting. No. So you signaled that by having him as, an unusual, like a dark-skinned fellow, much taller than the rest of the people. So that's very symbolic as well. So everybody else is like very short and malnourished and that kind of thing. He towers above everybody. So
yeah. I still love Nikos's line when they find him in the field there, and was he say something like, you found a behemoth of a yanker, if you get this behemoth of a yank out or something. That still makes me chuckle, that line that she wrote.
He's a giant in this world.
He perpetuates the age-old stereotype we had in Greece that everything is super big in size in America. So he comes from this place of giants, basically.
There you go. He exemplifies that. He is his name is Hunter. But he is the hunted. He is being literally hunted by the Nazis.
Until he decided, well, he's being hunted, but he's also...
No spoilers, guys.
There are no spoilers in what I'm going to say, which is, he's being hunted because Ludger is looking for him. But... when they find him, they become his prey when they find him in the pen, although he's still injured and gets reamed out afterwards that you messed up my work and all of that. He still is formidable enough to basically kill two
Right.
before he needs any kind of help.
That is a spoiler, though. People haven't read that far.
It's not a spoiler. It stops being a spoiler if it's like over 2 years old. Okay.
All right. So yeah, you have the hunter becomes a hunt. Wow. He is the hunter. That's it. So you've got that. You've got other characters. You've got a lot of strong female characters, which can be a terrible thing to say because, these are particularly strong female characters. Nikos, who is a very unusual character, is this short, snappy doctor kind of guy. So he's another. You've got a lot of unusual characters that people don't usually have. They're not in that you're not picking out of the normal archetypes in central casting. You've got your own take on these archetypes, which is an interesting thing. So yeah, I'm not sure what Nikos symbolizes, but he is a fantastic character. Ludger, he is straight out of central casting, but
another blonde, well maintained supervillain.
Yeah, with the villain behind glasses. He has that kind of look, the no soul. Kind of thing. Yeah. So you've got those kind of characters, but he exemplifies that very well. That cold, cunning, regulation evil.
Yes, Christine, with Ludger, what I like about him, he also has a background story that is very, very fitting for who he is. Didn't just appear as he is now. He has all this background that made him who he is, which is I really would like to at some point to get this chance of showing it. But
I would too.
Definitely. I love that story about Ludger. Anyway, he has everything is absolutely in order because he is a control freak. And he likes, to control and even micromanage when he, doesn't trust his underlings and everything. But there is one thing that is out of order slightly, still under control, but slightly out of order, and that's his cap that is always slanted on his head. He never actually knows it straight. And there is a story behind that, and that's the only streak of him that isn't like a machine, that little slanted part of how he wears his hat.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very stylish affectation. Incredibly stylish. So you have a lot. So that is a very symbolic kind of touch there. So we have that.
And there is, I will babble a little bit more because we don't really talk about Brave Resistance too much on the casts and everything. But the reason Nikos is so small because he's basically he's on the short side even for a Greek. Greeks generally are small people.
Well, they used to be.
They used to be. Now we are. I don't know what happened. Something in the baby formula or something. But now they're growing taller and taller. But back in the day, they were really short and generally petite. Let's say people. To give a measure, like my grandfather's shirt actually is a little short on the sleeves for me. Imagine that. Nikos represents this very tight package of dynamite. I know I'm short and I know that I have these advantages, so I'm going to make up for them by being super loud and project my personality everywhere so that I can, make up for all my flaws, whether they are perceived or actual. So that's one of his, let's say, coping mechanisms.
Yeah, so you do have a bit of a mice and men thing in the comic, and not really deliberately, but he's like the I can't remember what the character's name was, but in Mice and Men you have the very controlling smaller guy, and I think Lenny who's the big kind of the quiet kind of powerful guy, and so Hunter fits into that role. So you do have that kind of dynamic between them. Hunter is not retarded the way Lenny in Mice and Men, but he's a quiet kind of guy. He doesn't talk very much, and he sort of thinks. So yeah.
But he's a perfect foil for Nikos. Like, he doesn't let anything drop in his quiet, easy manner, but he always retorts in a sense, and that's how he earns Nikos' respect in the beginning, at least.
Yeah, he's not a stupid guy at all. He's a very thoughtful, intelligent guy, but he's just doesn't have that power of personality that Nikos does, who is a more dominant figure. Like, he imposes himself on the situation and takes control of it. Whereas Hunter sort of relies on his natural imposing figure in order to create that sort of effect. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. And again, you have like Hackett and Ludger, so you have a particular relationship there. Ludger represents the very controlled, intricate, kind of measured figure. Hackett is all over the place. Like, he is just dripping his huge ball of scuzz. He's leaking. He's barely holding himself together, whereas Ludger is very tightly bound. Hackett doesn't care. He's just all over the place. He can't control him. He's barely under control. Ludger is completely under control.
He's a hero.
And there need to be somebody as in control as Ludger in order to keep Hackett under thumb. You know, he barely does. He barely does.
Hackett barely keeps himself under control. Yeah. So yeah, you have that again, that quite obvious kind of symbolism. You can see that within their figures and just the way they look, and that exemplifies. God, I'm saying exemplify too much, but you know, that really demonstrates the way that they behave. Their characters are, which is interesting. I like to see you guys being so obvious about the way the character looks and the way they behave, and the good kind of pointers. So, Brave Resistance, a very symbolic work about World War II Greece. A very different take from Without Moonlight. Very, very, very different. So, Baines, we now come to Typical Strange, which the title, you told us many, many times about the title. You have obvious symbolism there. Typical Strange. You have that contrast, the dichotomy, frisson.
I wanted now that you mentioned the title, I wanted the title to be sort of symbolic, I guess, to represent something. I was like sort of puzzling over titles on that thing for a long time when I was originally doing the animated show. One of my original titles was Naked Aliens.
Really?
Which my friends, I bounced that idea off them. Nobody liked it, so maybe I'll use it for something else someday. But the idea being, like, they were all kind of weirdos in a way, and that would be kind of uncovered, like sort of that weirdness would be uncovered over the course of the series. So I thought that was good. But then I thought, like, well, I'll do two contrasting words instead, because I like that contrast thing. I find it effective in songs and in anything else. It's a powerful tool. So it's like two opposite words, and
it's attention getting.
It kind of works, and I think it I thought like, oh, there's probably nothing else called that, not that I could find anyway. So so their lives are kind of dull and monotonous in a way, but really, there's a lot of action, also a lot of sort of unusual experiences they have. So yeah, it kind of fits. And those terms are vague enough that could kind of match with anything, really, in a way.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of meaning behind them. So in Typical Strange, I think we said this in the video, but in case you don't pay for our Patreon,
patronize.
Yeah, don't patronize us. please patronize us. We like it. Yeah, you would have heard our brilliant examination of Typical Strange.
Yes, it's a good breakdown. Sort of archetypal kind of character types that are in there. If I'd thought, and it was done unintentionally, like it's sort of that kind of stuff that goes in, like Pitt was saying, like it kind of goes in as you're making something. It's kind of not really thought through completely ahead of time necessarily. It just kind of sort of appears there, kind of thing, through your process. Not thought about logically, it just kind of happens. If I had thought about it ahead of time, I might have tweaked the character types a little more, had a little more of this or that, or thought about like what this represents and that represents. I didn't, and then the characters kind of became what they are. So there's some symbolism, there's some just sort of randomness. They're loosely based on some people I know in some of the characters.
Well, they play off well with each other. Okay, so to recap, we have the intelligent Abigail, girl in glasses, hair in a bun, sort of librarian sort of look. Harley, the sexy femme
blonde
fatale
kind
sort
of
looking character.
Yeah, beautiful blonde kind of thing.
We have Oscar, who is more the everyman, who are meant to sympathize with automatically, which we do. He's sort of a bit innocent and put upon in this world. Then we have TK, who is his snarky best friend. There's a slight bit of evil in him, maybe, but not really. Then you have Penelope, the gigantic ingenue, who is quite an unusual character in that she's a bear of a woman, huge,
right?
But she is an ingenue, which is not a normal mix. Normally, your ingenue is going to be. I'm just going to keep saying that. Ingenue.
I'm just thinking, man, you keep saying it. I got to look up that word. I know what it means.
Normally, she's a svelte, small little person and big-eyed or whatever. But no, she is. Her whole body is big to match her eyes. So she is a huge woman. Yeah. We have Wade, who is almost a counterpart to. Yes,
he's a huge guy.
Huge Wade.
Yeah.
And normally this character would be like, the archetype for a big character is, he used to be an aggressive bully, but that has gone by the wayside in the present day. But he is like a callback to that. He is a big bully character, which is interesting. So he's a very retro character. He's a Bluto sort of thing, Brutus sort of.
Yes, yeah, very much, yeah. And,
Someone
I plan to somewhat develop. He's that bully archetype is not necessarily all he's going to be, but yeah.
I appreciate it though, because it's
definitely
not usual in the modern world. That is a very old-fashioned thing. We don't really see that often.
Right.
Our bully has to be someone small. Like Nikos could be a bully in the modern era.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
You're not allowed to have a big bully.
Yeah.
Just...
Oh, he would totally be able to fill the bully shoes if he ever wanted.
He could. So yeah, those are the characters, and I hope I didn't forget anyone. But
no, that's it.
That dynamic is used to create certain situations because it's a relationship-driven comic, character-driven comic. You have when I say that, it's obviously a sitcom. So you have situations, but you have characters and the way they deal with it. We're set in a video shop, which, as I said in the QUACKCAST video, that's an anachronism. Videos, DVDs in this world are long, long gone. But we have these characters replaying their lives within this world, and it fits. You could update it and turn it into something more modern and current, but it really, really sort of fits with these characters sort of being stuck in that world, or at least that being their base. and things rewinding back to normal as they do in a sitcom. So you're resetting. Right. They don't completely reset, but they do mostly. I mean, videos don't completely reset. You can rewind a video and it gets a bit damaged each time.
Oh, that's good, man. Maybe that's what'll happen to them.
Scan lines of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have that kind of symbolism inherent within the world and within the setup, which makes it, really a kind of really pleasing. Neat, man. I mean, it's pleasing in that way.
Okay, well, that's great. I hope that's the case. I mean, it does kind of, it does symbolize kind of the where they are in life. They're all kind of stuck in their own ways and not completely moving forward and growing up. Well, they might do it eventually, but it'll be at a glacier's pace.
Well, a couple of the storylines in that, say there's a huge dream sequence, I think, from memory, where you have the character sort of imagining what was happening in the future. And in the end, we return to the present day after all these imaginings. And you think, wow.
That storyline, I like it, but if I had realized it was going to I'd be so busy with, doing nothing, watching television that it would take me like the entire year to do that story. I wouldn't have done that story. It was so long with like not being the actual characters. It was just imaginary worlds. But that's true.
That? Yeah. Totally went off on that off on that theme.
Oh, it just took forever. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but by the time we came back to normal, it's like, oh, geez, that wasn't the reality. We hadn't moved on.
Like 10 years later, it's like, oh, now we're just right back to the exact status quo. Yeah.
Rewind.
Yeah, exactly. Rewound. Please rewind.
I gotta see that movie. Typical Strange. Gentle symbolism. It's not aggressive. It's not obvious, but it's there in the archetypes, in the settings.
It's somewhat there, yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
And what about the Pinky TA?
Well, okay.
Or did you? No, you did. You talked about that on the Patreon video.
The video, yeah. Okay, so Pinky TA has some obvious symbolism and archetypes. I started Pinky TA originally as a painting, one painting, which was I was really into anime at the time, especially giant robot anime, and there was always these small girls or small women, very sexy small women, paired with huge kind of mecha, huge robots. Like I'm thinking of like Patlabor. You've got a woman who loves her. Alphonse, I think is the name she gives her robot. We have Tank Police. This tiny woman who loves her Bonaparte, which is her favorite tank. She loves it.
Yes,
it's fantastic. Yeah, you have all that kind of thing. Burn Up W. You have this woman with this huge mecha. Neon Genesis Evangelion. You have Asuka with her gigantic machine. You have it was a really, really common kind of archetype. So I was interested in that. Trying to explore that. Why do you have that contrast? So this small female character with this enormous metallic mecha power, brutish kind of war machine. There's a frisson in there. The typical Strange. You have that contrast. It's really obvious. So I wanted to explore that, but also work out a way of making that a believable connection. Because sometimes that can seem like unbelievable. Why is this small woman? Why haven't we got the rock faced traditional American hero piloting this mecha? Why haven't we got Rambo doing it? Why have we got this spot little lady? So yeah, I was trying to work out a reason why that would be what would happen, and give her more of a believable personality. to be involved in this kind of situation. And there are other obvious themes in there. So in Pinky TA, obviously war is a huge theme throughout the comic, if you ever read it. My Dieselpunk Pinky TA. So I examine war from different angles. Why is war depicted as being sexy? Because war often is. It's always super sexy. Not only in fiction, but in reality, war is depicted as being sexy. Like American Army recruitment videos from any country, actually. Weapon sale videos from arms producers are super sexy. They're designed to be that way. There's funky rock music. There's
all of Starship Troopers was made around that very idea.
Yeah,
right.
We're showing a sexy side of war, but then you see like the other side of war, which is absolutely not sexy at all. Especially if you talk to veteran soldiers, war is a horrible sort of thing. So I wanted to examine that friction as well. The contrast between the fantasy of war that's projected to sell it to you, because they need recruits. They need people to buy these weapon systems. Everybody has a vested interest in making war sexy. But the people who actually get involved in war, not only the soldiers, but the civilians, everybody suffers who is involved in war. What the damage it does. So I wanted to examine that. So yeah, I have all those kind of things just as a setup. That's just as the background in Pinky. All obvious, I would say. Heaps of obvious symbolism. Just even throwaway symbolism, like Cece, who is like a sort of a bad guy character, has a heart on her crotch, which is an incredibly obvious piece of symbolism. So yeah, you've got creation, you've got love, you've got sexuality on an evil character. What am I saying there? I'm not saying anything deliberate. I'm leaving that up to the interpretation of the viewer. I'm being very cowardly there, but whatever. Viewers like making up their own interpretations of those kind of things. So yeah, that's Pinky TA. It's full of stuff that I've just thrown out there. But I realized we haven't tackled the gorgeous Without Moonlight. We jumped straight to Brave Resistance, but we didn't tackle Without Moonlight, though we did in the video. So, Tance, will you let me bastardize that with my own version? Okay, so Without Moonlight, you have Greece under occupation. So that's the setup there. Tance told us about the main character, Basil. Now, he's wounded. He has lost half his right forearm, and I'll leave Tance to tell us about that. But before I get into that, we have children who are the main protagonists in the beginning of Without Moonlight. We have a church where microfilm is hidden. We have a priest who is the guardian of, the church at least, not so much the microfilm. I won't get into that too much because it's spoilers. So, yeah, we have innocence within the form of the children. Innocence making do in a damaged world, in a world that is controlled by evil occupiers. The world through their children's eyes. So already you're getting like that low angle perspective of the world, and almost like a fantasy, a world sort of upended, because this is the children's view of the world, which you'd expect to be like a formative view, the world that innocents see. That's it's more of a they're not really seeing the adult world as we would see it. They're seeing it like they're experiencing this world for the first time. They've barely sort of known Greece or Athens as like a functioning society like these adults. These adults are seeing it as a world destroyed, damaged, changed. For these children, this becomes their new world. They're living in barrels. Like it's almost like a fantasy sort of situation for them. they're leaping onto the trucks. The danger isn't quite so real for them. It becomes real very quickly. But Tance does this quite well by giving us that perspective from children. So it doesn't seem like such an evil world to begin with. But, then she breaks it in on us. One of the main themes in Without Moonlight is actually growing up. Or lost innocence. You have that. Which, I think that is the main sort of theme at least in the beginning of Without Moonlight, but I think that really does sort of exemplify, the first huge part of it is growing up, especially through the main character, which is oh damn it, what's his name? Fotis. So Fotis really, really does grow up a lot mentally and physically. You see the changes wrought upon him. Anyway, so that's enough of me sort of blabbing on about it. And so, Tance, what will you say? I
have to say, I'm very impressed. Also, wow, I'm very impressed.
You're very good
A's on all of his essays so far.
For sure.
It is. I have this general preference in my narrative works in general to use kids to introduce people into worlds, and I find them to be very amenable in a sense as a medium through which a reader can immerse him or herself into the world that I want to present. So definitely that's one of the reasons that we have the main character being a child, or at least starting off being a child. Because yes, the world is such, and as you said, it is so completely extreme. The things that are happening are very extreme, and there is no normality. There are no real elements of routine, even before the plot kicks in, as in like the main thing, the MacGuffin thing that is happening. Even before that kicks in, they don't really have a routine. They try to pretend that they have a routine, but they don't, because it gets constantly disrupted by things that are happening as they try to get on with a single day or something.
Because the stresses of the occupation on the country.
Yeah.
The Nazi occupation.
So the thing is, I wanted the world to be very much visceral in a sense, but without it being grim by imagery. Like I wanted the city to actually look beautiful. And to have this impression of once having been a beautiful place to be, although now it is a hellish place to be. So you have this beautiful, lush, because that's also historical. Back in the day, Greece was very much a forested country, which isn't anymore, because and it started back then because the occupying forces would cut down the forests everywhere. So you have for various reasons, depending on what they wanted to do. So you have this lush green going on all around. You have the old buildings that already are probably like a century old, at least the modern ones, and you have all the antiquities and stuff, and these really grotesquely extreme things are taking place on this beautiful stage. So that was what I was going for, like to have the greenness and the shock coming not from like a Sin City level dark imagery, but having the action being the darkness, rather than anything signaling that, okay, we're going in for a tour of whatever hell this is, but to sort of take you by surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's symbolism, as you're saying, to get those kind of effects. But using a city like Athens, you've got a mine of extra symbolism you can use at any time. There are so many things because you've got monuments, you've got ancient Greek temples, obviously flags and stuff like that are ripe, that are heavy with symbolism, which you can bend any way. You can use in any way at all to adds huge layers of meaning. So you're so lucky to have a backdrop like that.
Yeah. I think to give an example, having the Nazi flag on the Acropolis without anything else happening, again, is like an imagery that, at least, I mean, I think for anyone, but especially for Greeks, if when they see this, it immediately brings an emotional reaction. So it's this symbol, like, okay, we are in the worst possible situation because we have this foreign flag that is also, it happened to also be very, very red, very bloody in all the wrong ways, flying on this monument that symbolizes completely different things. So
it's redolent, absolutely redolent. With heavy symbolism and potential for more. It's for PKTA. I have not got that kind of constant background. I mean, that's a real advantage in Without Moonlight, in that you have an amazing setting there. PKTA, it's sort of like everything's sort of made up, which you'd think would be an advantage because you can just come up with whatever you want. But it's not, because to logically make it fit it takes a lot more work. But I'm going off there. Off on a tangent there. But yeah, Without Moonlight is one of the stars of the symbolic writing from a veteran author. So you are a veteran author. You also are a movie scriptwriter as well. So do you sort of pay attention to the symbolism you use in those kind of things as well, and incorporate that into the work?
Oh yeah, I almost do it. I really like it. First of all, I like symbolism, and I like to hide many levels of symbolism, so that if you would read it again, you would probably find different things than when you read it the first time. Yeah. Or when you saw it, like for the movie, same thing. And when you put little symbols, you also create the situation for the reader or the audience to discover their own symbols, and that might not be what I had intended, but they will project onto it other elements, because you create this space, in a sense, of interpretation.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, when I create, especially when I design characters, I put a lot of symbols, from their names to their the way they look. And I don't like names like Evil McBuddy. Okay, that's not symbolism. But I do like I do like to have names that signal certain things if you would pay attention to them, not like hit you in the face with it.
So you're not going to be very Dickensian in your names.
Yes, I really like that.
It's very obvious. Well,
yeah.
so,
yes, please go.
Well, okay, Basil. So he's sort of the Saint Basil. There's characters like that. You have that in his name. Fortis. That sounds like fortitude to me. Although I don't know the Greek version of it.
Awesome. Fortis in Greek is light.
Oh, okay. Oh, like photo, that kind of meaning. All right, that's interesting. There's Iris again, who that's a goddess name, about a beguiling kind of beauty. Mm-hmm. You've got those kind of.
She's also a messenger. Iris, in mythology, would be like a messenger of the gods. But if you pay attention to her mythology, that message is not always very secure. She's a bit of she's not immediately nefarious, but she can be. And Basil can, as a name, can go a long way, every way, in every direction, because you have Saint Basil, who is our Santa Claus. And you also have the emperor, the Byzantine emperor, who is, his nickname is the Bulgar Slayer.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that he wasn't very, fluffy around the edges. And you also have basil being the plant that is very scented and adds flavor. And here it is very much linked to sanctity, because they use basil to create holy water. Basil as the plant. So it's up to you to consider what his name is linked to. Things like that. I like playing with these things a lot.
Yeah, I sort of did great. That with Pinky in that I've got the name Pinky TA, and that started off as a joke in that I had all these paintings sort of based on anime manga sort of thing, where you have the pretty women and they're she's voluptuous, and one of my lecturers said, "Oh, your work, it's just all tits and ass." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to own that." That's a criticism, but I'm going to have that, and that's going to be incorporated into the work. So TA became like her symbol, but it doesn't mean tits and ass. I mean, that was initially a joke years and years and years ago when I created that, but now TA is part of the title, and it can mean so many different things. Like her name is Tatiana Ananova. So it's got the simple, meaning, direct meaning. But
I love that name, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
It's fantastic. It just kind of rolls.
And it can mean anything else, like tactical attack, territorial army. That's it's a British thing. But yeah, you could just glare on whatever. But I don't spell it out in the title. It's just Pinky TA. And it's up to the reader to sort of work it out. So, yeah.
Total awesome.
Exactly.
And I also have to say,
total annihilation.
When I first read about Pinky, although she has this awesome mane of pink hair, probably because I speak English as a second language and I don't always get the immediate connotation. I don't know why, but I didn't connect the name Pinky with the color pink immediately. Okay, it hit me after 5-10 pages. But originally, the name Pinky reminded me of the pinky finger.
Okay.
So yeah, which is the pinky finger is the one that you don't really notice, but also if you don't have it, your grip is much less secure. So
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's the tangent my brain moved on. But then I said, "You're being an idiot. She has been here."
But that's interesting. Yeah. And there's also Pinky and the Brain, which people often mention, where you have again the whole Lemmy Mice and Men thing. You have the short little smart guy with a dumb guy who is all the strength and the power. So yeah, you have that kind of stuff as well. But yeah. So I like that. CC again. That's a very ambiguous kind of name. You know, what does it mean?
It almost like hearing that kind of names that are somewhat common to a degree. It almost falls on like, what are CCs that you've known in the past? Like people who have had those names, and then you kind of apply that a little bit. And of course, the characters end up making themselves, but it's really interesting. Well, kind of interesting. I say that too much. It's really interesting.
Yeah, well, they introduce a slight amount of ambiguity rather than just calling the characters John Smith or whatever. So things are slightly askew in that way, which, I like, and it's fun. It's hard to come up with names, so coming out with
it's hard, but it's fun at the same time. Like if you have that character's, like, going back to Brave Resistance, I love the juxtaposition. You have Hunter Perry Marshall, and then you have Ludger Axiga, Axiga, or however you say it. Like, just two phonetically different names for these two different characters, and you probably don't even have to see them in the comic to know who they are.
Yes, yeah, very much so. They become their names. Their names become them. But to even a character like Bones.
It works, man.
That's he's like the core of the world. There he is. He's Bones. But Bones can mean, like, that has a lot of different meanings. Like a doctor would be called Bones, as in, we have like Star Trek. You have the doctor there called Bones, but that's like a traditional name for an army doctor being called Bones. So you have that kind of thing, but it also has a meaning of death and someone who's very basic, and he's all that kind of stuff. He's the basic.
I think it's the basicness that brought me to it, because I had been thinking about his name for a long time. I had talked about before how he'd kind of gone through a bit of a evolution through the years, and the old name that I had for the old character archetype, from his Bishi days, that didn't quite fit anymore. It just needed an update. I can't call this dude this. So I sat there and I was listening to one of my Overkill CDs, and I thought, all right, well, I'm just going to pick up this CD case, and the first word that I look at, that's what I'm going to use. If it would have sucked, I wouldn't have gone with it. But they have a song on there called Bare Bones. And Bones. Dude. And then it was perfect, because it is basic. And it's like kind of tough guy. It's like at the same time, like it's kind of dumb and just like, it's just what it is, right?
Such a simple name. Yeah. 5 letters. Bones.
He can barely spell it as it is. Like,
but.
Well, his original name, his birth name, is Timothy Timbucker, but he doesn't want anybody to know that.
Oh God! Just endless teasing from Igor. Never let him forget that. Even Tread would tease him.
Puke too. Puke.
What
a fucking idiot. I don't know what people would say. He'd probably just like lob heaps of shit at him or something. I don't know. And get in a fight.
He's an ape. But yeah. So, and typical Strange again, you've got symbolism, although Baines has gone for more slightly generic sounding names, but again, they do have symbolism for their characters. Penelope is a very light, friendly, pretty name.
Penelope Oxiga. Sorry.
Hey, maybe a full fanfic.
Wade fits with the
Marriage.
character in that, he is like that's a more like Wade through everybody, but it's it's like a more douchey sort of name for that kind of douchebag kind of character. TK could.
I knew a great big dude named Wade one time.
You are.
Completely different personality, but I made his last name Russell because I know a friend of mine named Russ, who Wade is kind of based on. I'll never tell him that. But, yeah,
I like that. It's kind of big and gruff sounding, but also kind of squishy at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Russell.
It took forever to do these names, to be honest. Like just sort of, and it wasn't really a symbolic thing as much as just what you're talking about. Like what they had to sound like, what the character feels like to me. And plus, you have to have, you don't want a whole bunch of names starting with the same letter and that sound the same and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so, it's tough, man. Just lists and lists of names and just like mixing and matching and like figuring it out.
Well, Oscar is a rather unusual name for that kind of lead character, but it fits anyway. It fits. It works.
Yeah, I wanted it to be just a little bit unusual, not like John or something like that. I just chose. I'm sorry, I just said that at rant. I literally wasn't even thinking of you. I think of you as Oz. But,
John's my middle name, but John is
right, yeah.
a super generic name. John is like the Muhammad Abdul of the Christian Western world. So that is probably literally the most generic male name you can have.
My name is incredibly common as well. Like my first, last, everything is like, I've Googled it and it's like, oh my God, there's a bajillion of me out there.
Baines' name is literally John. So he's.
That's right. Exactly.
Very creative.
My name is Wong, actually.
Jeez. So we have that kind of thing in our names, but TK is you like got another character like CC, initials. It can mean anything.
Yeah. And it was similar to your. I mean, I didn't think of it until you mentioned it, but it's a little like it's ambiguous. It's odd. It's kind of like, what's this one all about?
We can come up with our own name for him. Yeah, what does TK mean? So you have all that kind of mix and match stuff. Oh, Harley again. You have that like dangerousness of the Harley motorbikes, Harlequin, all that kind of stuff, and it fits with her sort of sexiness, dangerous sexiness. Abigail, who is the librarian character, that name sort of exemplifies something that is more
a little formal-ish,
kind of. More formal, more old-fashioned.
Sort of nice girl, like smarty pants, good girl. Yeah,
exactly.
A little bit stiff, maybe something like that. Yeah,
names are a great place to start with symbolism. Whether
and just like I'm thinking that the way that she still keeps using all of her names, it doesn't call herself Abby or some other kind of version.
Yeah,
that also tells.
She always calls herself that.
Abigail. She's not Abs.
Whereas nobody else calls her that. I don't think. None of all the other characters call her Abby or, Abs.
Scabby Abby.
Scabby.
Scabby Abba.
Yeah.
You can come up with horrible, horrible nicknames.
Crabigail. I think TK in the first animated show.
Crabigail.
He called her that once in the. And the people playing them, a little inside info. No, I won't tell you. I can't tell you this actually. Private. The actors are closely aligned with each other in real life at that time, who were playing the voices. So.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Well,
he could fight. Yeah.
I think we've pretty much reached the end of this QUACKCAST, but that's an interesting topic. I want to ask people how they came up with the names of the characters. And what they symbolically mean.
It's a cool idea, actually. You could put that out to the community.
All right. So thank you very much for listening to the QUACKCAST 409, and maybe watching a Patreon video, which is really cool. You can see us in all our glory. All right. Okay. Thanks, guys. 410 next week. Woohoo! A round number. I love it.
Thank you.
Bye.